Wow, more surprises in this tournament, courtesy of the team that everyone is falling in love with, I believe, Cabo Verde. Hello guys, this is the World Cup Daily Recap. Day 11 now. Subscribe if you're new here, join the community, drop your thoughts, all of that. Group G and Group H are a go today. So Iran fielded the oldest starting 11 in World Cup history since Opta has been analyzing, which goes all the way back to 1966. The average age of their 11 was 32 years and 181 days. Both teams could have scored early in this one, as it wasn't necessarily Belgium dominating early on. Just like throughout the match, Belgium were the team with more touches in their opponent's box, more attempts on target, vastly superior possession. But that doesn't mean that Iran did absolutely nothing. They still threatened. Such as in the 13th minute when Courtois made a fantastic save, getting low to his right to stop Kanani's attempt. This really is the World Cup of keepers, eh? Some unreal keeper performances in this tournament, and we're only getting started with this game in particular. Iran thought that they were ahead. Great free kick routine from Iran. Taremi just peeling away when everyone expected the free kick to be an attempt at goal. Nice finish, but he was offside. Really close though. Basically his backside was offside. In the second half, the player of the game became increasingly obvious. Berenvent, the Iranian goalkeeper, started making save after save, driving the Belgians insane. None better than his first save on De Kuiper, because they would meet again later, him and De Kuiper, but his first one where he was already on the ground and he reached out his left arm to stop a sure goal, just a fantastic save. You could argue that Belgium should have been better with their finishing, of course. They should have buried some of those chances, yes, but Berenvent was in stunning form. Again, like many keepers at this World Cup, these keepers are getting too good, man. We gotta stop this. Game's gone. Now, Ngoya got a red card after a horrible back pass from him was basically a perfect through ball to Taremi, who was right beside him. He put a hand on his shoulder, Taremi went down, of course, and the ref gave Ngoya a red card. Now, it certainly wasn't enough contact to make a 33-year-old elite athlete fall to the ground, that's for sure, but this is Mehdi Taremi we're talking about. A baby's breath would knock him over, and he would be able to somehow sell it as a foul to the referee. He is a master at this. Like it or not. And like it or not, when you do something like that, like put your hand on the opponent's shoulder, you are then forcing a decision out of the referee. He chose red, and VAR thought it wasn't a clear and obvious error from the referee, so it stood. Belgium lost their momentum for a little bit as Iran pushed to try to get a winner, but they wrestled it back and it didn't look like they were a man down for the final 10 minutes or so. But it ended 0-0, 2 draws apiece for these two, and Belgium in particular probably thought that they would have at least one victory by now after 2 matches. Not that they would underestimate Egypt and Iran, but man, flopping at the World Cup again. They'll get a win over New Zealand and everything will be fine. Or will it? Egypt and New Zealand in Vancouver, once again, shout out New Zealand. They are going above and beyond anything that anyone really ever expected of them. And part of the low expectations is that the highest ranked team they played in qualifying was New Caledonia. Now, I think the main expectation was that New Zealand would be super outclassed in all of their matches. Remember, they are the lowest ranked team at the tournament. Lower than Curaçao, lower than everybody. They lost 4-0 to Haiti, and yes, it's a friendly, but when you assessed all information given to you, it wasn't looking good for them. Then they did what they did against Iran. Just a fantastic match, that one was. Cut to this one, and they were doing it again, but in a slightly different way against Egypt. If my memory serves me correctly, they were playing the ball in the air far more and winning second balls against Egypt, and just in general, were dominant in the air, which is how they got the go-ahead goal. Corner kick, towering header from Finn Sermon to make it 1-0. Would it last? Egypt took over after the hydration break, and that continued into the second half as well to an even higher degree. However, it was New Zealand who had the best chance to score early in the second half, with McCowit's header from close range getting pushed over the bar by Egypt's Schobert. But before the hour was up, Zico floated away from 2 defenders completely unmarked and powered a header past the keeper. Crocombe, the keeper, probably wishes he could have had a second chance at that, as his one-handed attempt was a weird choice. But Egypt felt kind of inevitable after that, and they found their goal through none other than Mo Salah, who arrived at the World Cup by slotting one low past Crocombe following a nice give and go with Mustafa Zico, 2-1 Egypt. And this Zico fella, just in his 4th cap for Egypt, he's 29 years old and he's now scored 3 goals and assisted Salah for the winner. Not bad in 4 caps. They weren't done there, however, as Mahmoud Trezeguet would convert from a corner. Big disappointment for New Zealand, as that's where they had been so dominant, right? Set pieces. And a near post header from Trezeguet, beating Crocombe, not great. Assisted by Salah, the man who showed up in the second half, didn't he? When his country needed him. So Egypt get their first ever win at a World Cup, despite this being their 4th World Cup tournament. That takes them to the top of the table, but everything to play for on the final match day. As you can see here, New Zealand just got to beat Belgium and they're in the money, man. Spain taking on Saudi Arabia. Of course, everyone had a draw in the previous match day, so everyone were, they're all looking to get back on track, especially Spain. However, as I saw plenty of Lamine Yamal propaganda on my timeline, he was apparently very focused and very determined in Spain training, as so many different headlines said. And with him starting on the right, Spain looked completely different. Saudi Arabia were solid defensively in qualifying, and they were relatively solid against Uruguay as well, relatively. Alouais contributing, 9 saves to help get the draw over the line against Uruguay. However, with Yamal starting, and someone people aren't mentioning as much, but Dani Olmo starting as well, Spain looked vastly improved. Olmo was able to wriggle out of extremely claustrophobic situations, and Yamal, of course, was a threat each time he was on the ball. And just as Haaland announced himself on the World Cup stage in his debut, as did Yamal, and I say that because the similarities in their goals are quite funny, and I say funny because it is not the kind of goal you think of when you think of Lamine Yamal sliding into the back post. I mean, you usually picture him cutting inside and curling one in, but him scoring made him the 8th youngest player to score at a World Cup. His teammate Gavi, still the 3rd youngest. But the ball played across to him came from Mikel Oyarzabal, who ended up being the man of the match in this one. He would get 2 goals, the second of which made it 3-0, was a stunner. Ball looped to the back post from Pedro Porro. Cucurella, with his customary run, touched it back to Olmo first time. Olmo headed across goal, and Oyarzabal just had to side foot it in. A really, really nice team goal from Spain that felt a little bit unfair. Saudi Arabia was chasing shadows out there. 3-0 down after 24 minutes. This was a very different match from their draw with Uruguay. They had just 2 attempts in the first half, and neither of them were on target. In the second half, they had 1 attempt, and it was on target. The second half was dominated by Spain for the most part, Cucurella contributing to an own goal from Saudi Arabia to make it 4-0, and after the hydration break, it was a little more even, actually. Hydration break, changing things again, huh? So Spain did look better, even if their performance dipped in the second half. However, some of that can be explained by De La Fuente taking Yamal and Oyarzabal off at the half, and at the hour mark, Olmo and Baena came off as well. With their top guys out there, they looked great. Yamal looks dangerous for his first start since April 22nd, certainly looking better than he did in that opener against Cabo Verde, in that little showing that he had. This may as well have been the match of the day. Respect to Spain and Saudi Arabia, there were goals, but no contest. But this one, wow, it was breakneck speed the entire time, both teams taking big swings at each other. Cabo Verde took a while to get started. Around the 13th minute, they started to look dangerous on the counter, and one such counter won a free kick that Kevin smashed through the wall, and it swerved away from Muslera for Cabo Verde's first ever goal at a World Cup. What a moment for them. What a way to get it. Now, the statistic to remember here is this. Uruguay haven't won a World Cup match in which they conceded first since 1966. That's 60 years ago, brother. Honestly, Uruguay were... I'd say they were pretty loose with their passing in the final third, and Cabo Verde's defense was absolutely immense all match long. But they finally got a goal when a ball into the box hit the post. I believe it was even Sidney Lopes Cabral of Cabo Verde who headed it off his own post. Then Maxi Araujo dove to head it in. Unlucky for Cabo Verde, but well done from Araujo once again. It was a bit funny and unfortunate for Cabo Verde because in the lead-up, Arcanjos was down with cramp. Viñas of Uruguay was helping him with that cramp, stretching him out, but let go when Uruguay began attacking again and just ran off and left him there. Then Uruguay turned the match around completely with the goal in the final minute of stoppage time of that first half. Ball sailed into the box, headed across goal by Uruguay's MVP of this World Cup, Maxi Araujo, and then tucked away by his teammate. So, was Bielsa's team finally going to win a match at the World Cup in which they had been scored on first? They were winning. Would this be the first time since 1966? Well, they did actually break a record, and that Marcelo Bielsa has managed at the World Cup 3 times now. This is his third, with Argentina and Chile prior, now Uruguay. And his teams have never scored more than 1 goal in a game until now, right? But in the second half, a disaster of a goal for Uruguay to concede. They really don't want to break that record that goes back to 1966. A horrible back pass, but the worst part was Muslera running out of his area as if it had exploded into flames or something. No need for that. I get you were near the edge of your box already, but the better gamble is putting the onus on the attacker to chip you first time before getting closed down by the 2 defenders who were nearby. I mean, easy for me to say, who was reheating yesterday's barbecue for dinner while watching this game. That led to Helio Varela getting his first ever international goal in a way that he would never have imagined. 1 touch to control, then the calm finish. Still a lot to do there with 2 Uruguayan defenders closing in. It then became kind of all hands on deck for Cabo Verde defensively, and what's interesting here is that clearly Uruguay are capable of dominating teams, as they did against Saudi Arabia in the second half of that match, and as they were doing late against Cabo Verde when they were looking for a winner. But they aren't the fastest starters. They are slow starters, and they have some boneheaded mistakes in them. That former defensive grit that used to be associated with them, the personnel aren't there anymore, and the coach isn't exactly known for that, right? But man, Cabo Verde are so damn combative. They're quick, skilled, counter as well as anyone. And they nearly took the lead deep in added time from a rapid counter, if not for Bentancur's last-ditch tackle on Nuno da Costa. But in the end, it finished 2-2, and Cabo Verde can boast that they now have draws with both Uruguay and Spain, and they play Saudi Arabia next as we look at the standings here. Uruguay and Spain could cannibalize points in their match, so there is a world where Cabo Verde finish top. A distant world, but a very plausible world where they finish in second, right? Unbelievable. I will say this, they are not a team that, you should be praying you get in the knockout rounds. They are far from a pushover. And hey, Uruguay's streak of not winning a World Cup match since 1966 when they concede first continues. It keeps on rolling. And guys, the World Cup Daily Recap will continue tomorrow, so be sure to subscribe. I appreciate you watching. Head over to the 90th Minute to check out their daily preview show, linked below. And beyond that, we'll see you guys soon. Later.